At this point, I'm sure that we have been acquainted on the Zoom chat, so I'm going to jump right into my presentation. My presentation is centered around growth mindset development and collegiate athletics. A little bit about me. I was born in Clare, Michigan, where I attended Clare High School. I then attended Delta Community College and then Huntington University. I attended Delta for 1 year and then Huntington for 3. I majored in sports management while at Huntington University. And then I came to Wisconsin Lutheran College to enroll in the Leadership and Innovation program while also being a graduate assistant baseball coach at Wisconsin Lutheran. I spent 1 year there as a pitching coach, and now currently I'm coaching at Taylor University in Upland, Indiana. And that leads into Chapter 1. To start, it's important to understand the key characteristics of each mindset and also define the key terms so we understand what we're talking about as we progress through this presentation. First, a growth mindset can be defined as a mindset that creates a belief that one's intelligence or talents on a certain subject is just a starting point. And that starting point can be improved through hard work and dedication. And you'll see that Carol Dweck is mentioned a lot in this presentation. She's kind of the creator of growth and fixed mindsets and defined these terms. A fixed mindset is a mindset that creates a belief that one's intelligence or talent are a fixed trait and they cannot be improved upon. And then mindset development is a process in which a mindset is improved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Now going into the characteristics of each mindset. Those with a growth mindset use failure as a valuable learning experience, base success on their effort given towards a task, as well as improving on a task, show high effort levels towards ordinary and challenging tasks, and believe that improvements of intelligence and skills are possible. Those with a fixed mindset struggle with the concept of failure or challenging tasks. They base success solely on the outcome of a task and their performance. They have low effort levels when faced with challenging tasks and believe that intelligence and skill are a fixed trait, unable of improvement. The problem that I identified was in a study done by Boylan, Bartlett, and Noss. They found that 37% of teachers they surveyed did not know the differences between a growth and fixed mindset. If they don't understand the characteristics or the differences between the two, then how would they know how to develop one? Furthermore, there is no research on growth mindsets as it relates to athletics or in the field of collegiate athletics. It is safe to assume that if teachers don't know how to develop mindsets or know the differences between them, coaches probably aren't far behind. So that led me to the rationale for the project, and as a collegiate baseball coach, I've seen the need for growth mindset development inside athletic programs, and the reason for that is that coaches have a huge opportunity to influence their athletes in a positive or negative way. And I think the development of growth mindsets is a way a coach can make a huge impact that lasts way longer than the time the athlete has in the sports program, but as in their lives as an employee, a member of society, father, mother, husband, or wife as well. As Deck says, the view you adopt for yourself profoundly affects the way you lead your life. And I feel that if a coach can help a student athlete develop a growth mindset, the view that they will adopt for themselves is going to lead to huge positive changes or positive outlooks on their life. And that led me to the driving questions for this project. First are, what are the most effective steps to move a learner from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? How can collegiate athletic coaches effectively conduct mindset development in a large team setting? And can there be a system developed that creates enough structure, but leave enough flexibility to adapt to individual situations to develop mindsets? Which ultimately led to my research question, which is, what strategies and processes can a collegiate athletic coach implement to develop a growth mindset in their student athletes? And that leads us into Chapter 2, the literature review. So in choosing the literature, I found it really important to break things into subgroups so that I could stay organized and develop the research to flow correctly. And those three subgroups were the characteristics of fixed and growth mindsets, developing growth mindsets, and program design. I also had another subgroup that was added in very late, that is how coaches learn, but that is more of a kind of introductory thing that I'll talk about in a little bit. The literature gathered on these themes gives an understanding of what a fixed and growth mindset is, which is important, I think, to understand if you're a coach, why you should be able to implement this, what are the benefits, and then also helps your athletes understand what's important, why is it important, and how is it going to help them. The second is how to effectively develop mindsets in individuals. That's obviously important, and if you want to take a learner from a fixed mindset and put them in a growth mindset, and then how to all put it together in a training environment that is systematically efficient, that makes sense, and that creates a deep learning transfer that leads to change. The key sources I found for each, in characteristics of fixed and growth mindsets, Carol Dweck is obviously a huge one. Susanna Cornwall and Fiona Seaton do a plethora of knowledge in the fields of characteristics of fixed and growth mindsets, the benefits of having a growth mindset, and why an individual would consider one over the other. Growth mindset development, again, Dweck and Seaton are huge in that. Chow, Visere, Mukdadepe, Dehija, Jock, Sun, Lowton, Chin, and Waters and Cornwall were huge influences on the research in the growth mindset development field, as they have great experience in that field. And then program design was Jing Guo, Quinlin Huang, Xiaobian Liu, Manu Kippur, Real, and then Kazar. All have really, really good research out there on program design and how to effectively create a training program to create deep learning transfer in a subject. Chapter 3, Methodology. The goal is to create a mindset development training program that a collegiate athletic coach could use in their athletic yearly calendar as well as their institution's academic calendar. To do this, I conducted a meta-analysis of over 50 journal articles that dates back to my time in the beginning of the Leadership and Innovation program, as I've collected articles since the very first course in this program. I systematically reviewed these articles for about 4 months, starting back in, I want to say, November, where I started to really read, sift through the information of each journal article, and I started to organize the relevant information for use about 2.5 months ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that, really since January, as the final course for this capstone project has progressed. The end result was 19 total sources inside the themes that I characterized. Coming back to how coaches learn, that was a late ad that was used really just to give some insight on how a college athletic coach would learn the best, so that we can make this program in a way that they can use effectively to teach their athletes. I have 2 sources for that. Characteristics of fixed and growth mindsets has 9 sources. I have accumulated 7 sources for the development of growth mindsets, and then 7 sources inside of program design. Some of the sources overlapped into different or into multiple of the subgroups that have impacted my research in several ways. And that leads us into Chapter 4, Data Analysis. First, in the field of characteristics of fixed and growth mindsets, I found 5 different sources that discuss failure between the 2 mindsets. Individuals with a fixed mindset find failure as detrimental, as something that means that they aren't intelligent or they aren't smart. As Dweck said, individuals with fixed mindsets believe that they're smart or they weren't, and failure meant that they weren't. Dweck also found that they simply will try to repair their self-esteem when faced with failure, or that they will try and blame others or other circumstances on their failure. Because again, they believe that failure means that they aren't intelligent, means that they're not smart or they're not skilled at something, and that those things cannot be improved upon. And they don't like feeling that way. Susanna Cornwall found that they're unable to overcome disappointment and that they lack resilience. Moving on to growth mindsets and failure. Jack, Sun, Lowton, Chin, and Waters found that there is mounting evidence that when students encounter challenging situations, those with a growth mindset about their intelligence are more highly motivated to engage with the task, learn from mistakes, accept failure, and ultimately reach higher levels of achievement. Dweck describes those with a growth mindset are those who seek challenge and thrive in it as well. In a study that looked into the relationship of depression and mindsets, Dweck found that while those with growth mindsets are not immune to depression and anxiety, they are much better at confronting it and making improvements on their lives that can help them in their situation. The next topic is effort in the mindsets, which I found 4 total articles on mindsets and effort. Dweck states that because of a fixed mindset, many adolescents protect themselves by putting forth minimum effort. Again, this goes back to if an individual with a fixed mindset faces a challenge that could produce failure, they don't want to try it, because if they fail, then again, they're a failure, they can't improve upon it. Whereas if they had easy challenges that they know they can succeed in, they might give high effort, but it's those challenging tasks and risk-taking that they try to avoid. Seaton found that individuals with a fixed mindset are likely to prioritize performance over learning. So, if an individual with a fixed mindset gets in a tough problem where they might be able to learn from a lot of their, or learn from the problem-solving task, they won't engage in that because if they fail or if they don't have the intelligence to solve the problem right away, then they're a failure. On the opposite end, individuals with growth mindset change effort that may affect the willingness to attempt challenging tasks and perseverance required to complete them. This led to increased persistence and reduced effort avoidance in the study done by Mrazek, Molden, Zelius, Schooler, and Im. Individuals with a growth mindset tend to aspire to master knowledge, try to learn the task and learn through their mistakes or learn through the challenging problem-solving task, and they tend to be more persistent while investing more effort and displaying fewer helpless responses, such as withdrawal behavior or experience of a negative effect. And that was found by Chow, Viscere, Medekape, and Dehagia. Individuals with a growth mindset, furthermore, are likely to embrace and seek challenges in learning. They persevere when faced with challenges or adversity and hold higher levels of intrinsic motivation, and that was found by Fiona Seaton in her study. Dweck states that those with growth mindset admire effort and view effort as something that ignites the ability and turns it into accomplishment. I think it's important to note that growth mindset individuals, they do value achievement and process or results in their daily tasks or their daily challenges, but they understand that effort is what gets them there, and that even though they might fail at first, there is still a road to the success they're looking for. They're also more likely to apply more effort in difficult challenges, and they don't see failure as reflecting on their intellect. That was found by Carol Dweck. Now that we have discussed the key characteristics of each mindset, that leads us into growth mindset development. This is where I'll discuss the key strategies that I found in my research that can help a learner move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And the first thing is that an instructor exhibiting a growth mindset, which I found two sources that spoke on that. Hamovitz and Dweck found that a parent's perception on a student's level of competence predicts a child's own perception of their competence. Fiona Seaton found that it is posited that a teacher's own mindset, belief, and practice is vital to supporting students to consider their own mindsets and to develop thinking strategies to support their learning. Seaton also found that not only does a teacher's perception of a student's abilities reinforce the student's view of themselves, but also a teacher's own self-view impacts their own approach and confidence levels. So as we can see here that by exhibiting a mindset or believing in a student's mindset or believing that a mindset can be improved, just by believing those things, a teacher / instructor or coach can begin to shift mindsets in those they lead. Mindset intervention is another key component to developing mindsets. A mindset intervention is simply the education on what a growth mindset is, the differences between a growth and fixed mindset, and then how to improve one's mindset. Individuals learn that mindsets can be developed and that it is possible for one to grow their mindset and improve themselves. The brain grows stronger with repeated exercise is another thing they learn, and that through practice the brain gets better at tackling difficult tasks. Dweck, in a psychology class that she teaches at Stanford every year, she found that just learning that the growth mindset can cause a big shift in the way people think about themselves and their lives. And then for interventions to be effective, it is important to connect personal effort and hard work to better performance outcomes. An individual going through the intervention needs to know that what they're doing in this intervention and through the training, it will lead to improved performance in whatever field they're in. Praising smart is another important component to consider when developing growth mindsets, and I've broken it down into praising the ability versus praising the process. Praising the ability would be praising a student on their intelligence or their talent on a certain task, whether that be math, social studies, or any other topic. Where praising the process would be praising how hard they've worked, how they've learned from their mistakes, and how they've been willing to attempt challenging tasks. In a study where Dweck monitored student performance on the type of praise they were given, she found that ability praised students' performance plummeted, even when they were given some of the more easier problems, where effort praised kids showed better performance. Hamovitz and Dweck found that children praised for intelligence were more likely to see their intelligence as a fixed trait, reject hard tasks in favor of easier tasks, and were also more likely to see their difficulty as reflecting badly on their intelligence. Hemovitz and Dweck found that children who were praised for the process saw their intelligence as something they could develop, stayed focused on learning even through hard tasks, and then would choose hard tasks over easier ones. They summarized their research in finding that tying the process, effort, or strategies to an outcome, learning, or attainment could promote a growth mindset. Praising strength is another useful way to develop growth mindsets. Jackson, Lowton, Chin, and Waters studied the effects of strength-based parenting on children. Strength-based parenting can be defined as praising strengths as well as the use of those strengths. One simple way that has been found to manipulate a child's mindset is through the type of praise given. When parents provided strength-based feedback, it was significantly related to strengths use in their adolescent sons and daughters. The authors found that through different approaches to strength development, it can either result in a fixed or growth mindset about strengths. They found that parents who were able to use strength-based parenting, it led to more of a growth mindset in the use of those strengths in children. Another way to develop growth mindsets is by letting those that you instruct or lead experience failure. Cornwall argues that parents who seek to shield their children from hurt and harm of every kind actually do their children an injustice. It robs them of an opportunity to develop resilience and to grow through problem-solving skills. Cornwall states that to increase resilience, individuals need to be given more opportunities to fail safely. This can be done by giving students the opportunity to try out ideas and techniques without being over-anxious that unsuccessful experience will mean they fail. For example, in school, if a student fails in a certain assignment, they get a failing grade. What Cornwall suggests is that there are more assessments or assignments that are able to be used where a student can experience failure but not have to worry about the performance outcome. That leads us to the program design section of this project. The first thing to consider when designing a successful program is its practical application. Jingwu, Kunling Hang, and Xibian Liu state that the training system needs to be connected with practical work so that the training will be more systematic and meet the trainees' needs for practical techniques. Rummel found that there are three important factors to consider when training or designing a training program. These are the personal motivations of the participants, the relevance to the participants, and the future goal orientation of the participants. Within the instructional process, the opportunity for application is the most important for influencing factors for transfer. The length of the training program is also important to consider, and that in a study done of several training programs, Ferris, Wu, Sullivan, and Moore found that the duration and appropriate amount of contact hours are crucial elements of professional learning, and that none of the effective programs that they studied were one-time or short-term events. In a study of community college leadership programs, Rail and Kaiser found that most of the successful training programs lasted one academic year, so they were long-term events. The role of the instructor is important to consider when developing a program. Jingwu, Qinling Hong, Xibian and Liu organized the program into three distinct stages, and they outline the role of the instructor in each. And these three stages are the preparation stage, implementation stage, and conclusion stage, which I'll be discussing not necessarily in exact order here. I'll also incorporate other program design methods in each stage, but I'll kind of follow a systematic process in developing those as we go on. The instructor in the preparation stage should first formulate implementation schemes and plans for the training. They should then contact and arrange teachers for the training courses, carry out any necessary preparation work, and then also submit relevant documents to the program management group to examine and revise. I think this is important because they understand that they will take others' opinions into the training program and not just go on their own opinion. In the implementation stage, the instructor should be responsible for the organization, management, and implementation of the subject. Assessments are also important to use, and I think that this really goes into the preparation stage as well. Reel and Kaiser found that participants involved in their study find self-assessments beneficial. They become more self-aware, discover their own leadership styles, address their weaknesses, and then also design strategies in the training to use their strengths and then also improve upon their weaknesses. Seaton also found that assessments provide encouragement to reflect and assess on their own mindset, which I think is extremely important in this program. There's also a need for programs to assess participants as they enter the program and identify the value-added program outcomes, as well as the content and formats that help achieve those outcomes stated by Rummel. Learning transfer is also another important aspect to consider, and this learning transfer can be defined as the ability for a student to take what they've learned and be able to transfer into their everyday life. Manu Kapur found that productive failure, also known as guided discovery, is the most effective way in which transfer can be achieved. And this can be kind of defined as designing conditions that may not maximize performance in the shorter term, but in fact maximize learning in the longer term. Productive failure engages students in solving problems requiring concepts they have yet to learn, followed by consolidation and instruction on the targeted concept. Lin and Shen discovered that it's important for the participants to be equipped with awareness and toolkits rather than just teaching them theories. Rummel also found that it is important for educators to have an application process which these participants can use what they're learning in a way that they are doing it in real life as opposed to just hearing it and absorbing new ideas from lectures. Lin and Chen also backed this claim by simply stating participants should learn by hands-on experience, and that is the most effective way to create learning transfer. For training sessions to be effective, the problem-solving task should be challenging enough to engage the learner in exploration, but not so challenging that the learner gives up. That's important because a student should be able to look at a challenge and look at multiple solutions or strategies. The problem should activate the learner's prior knowledge, and then compare and contrast the prior knowledge with the current solution that they're trying to find, as opposed to just creating a super hard challenge where a student has no chance of learning it. Rummel found that individuals achieve learning transfer when the environment allows them enough space to practice and change, and that environment also mirrors that back to them. The environment is created when learners are prompted to selectively recall prior experience, relate it to their current situation, and articulate how these might interact inside a situation where they're able to, again, practice change and not have to worry about failing as being detrimental to their performance. Jingwu, Kunling Heng, and Zhaoman Liu found that learners can create deep transfer when they carry out communication and discussions, and this can be as simple as group discussions that involve critical thinking and create conflict that isn't necessarily bad conflict, but allows people to discuss things from varying viewpoints. Rillenkhauser found that mentorship plays a key role in preparing employees for leadership positions, as well as going after daily challenges and tasks. So I believe mentorship is important to consider in learning transfer as well. Benefits of that include exposure to different leadership styles and discussion on leadership issues, including challenges, which I think can be beneficial to participants. Rillenkhauser summarizes the program should include team building activities and time for networking that will help participants learn from one another. Finally, assessing the program in its last stages is important. Post-program surveys and assessments are important to identify the effectiveness of the program. The instructor should summarize the training, collect data on anything that you have, whether that is assessments, athletic data, or academic data, collect relevant suggestions, and create summary reports and archive them for future use. And this was found by Jingwu, Quanlang Heng, and Xibian Liu. Rummel also stated that there's a need for programs to assess participants as they enter the program and identify the value-added program outcomes, as well as the content and formats that help achieve those outcomes. That leads us into Chapter 5, Implications and Recommendations. Recommendations for practice. In the planning stages of the training, the length of the program should be a high concern. So for college athletic coaches, this should include 1 academic year according to the institution's academic calendar. This should also include classroom sessions in the off-season with mindset intervention techniques used in those. It should be clear that there is practical use in the practice for the training, in practice or training for those athletes. The logistics of when to incorporate the training is dependent on each sport. So for example, in the baseball season, there's a short season in the fall where coaches can include classroom sessions before practice and reinforce those lessons during practice and training. Then once the off season hits, there should be multiple times per week where there's something tied to a classroom setting where it is mindset intervention techniques or mindset improvement. Then once the spring season comes where there's actual games, most of the training should be now completed, but should be reinforced in practice game situations and team meetings. I think it's important to assess mindsets early and then often throughout the training. If you assess early, this shows an individual exactly where they are. They can track improvements as training progresses by assessing periodically throughout the training. It also gives awareness to learners on what they need to improve upon as the training progresses and then even before it starts. The instructor, which is an athletic coach, should exemplify a growth mindset. It is clear that individuals begin to take on beliefs and mirrors the attitude of a leader based on their own mindset. Leaders with a growth mindset can influence their followers to take on characteristics of a growth mindset just by their everyday behavior. Praising smart is another important thing to consider, and that through praise is usually considered to be helpful, some praise can have negative effects if conducted in the wrong context. Poor praise can include praising individuals or athletes on their talent, the result of a task or practice, and their intelligence on the sport, or academically. Good praise would involve how their processes, the work ethic the athlete showed, their ability to attack risks or take on challenging tasks, and their improvement over a sustained period of time. Letting the participants experience failure is an important recommendation for practice. This should happen primarily in games and in practice sessions. Leaders should allow those they lead to fail, especially in those training sessions, as failure in games is inevitable. If they haven't experienced failure in a practice session, then how will they be able to cope or deal with that failure in games? The coach should reinforce the ability to learn from failure, and that they should also reinforce that failure is an important tool in growing. Designing sessions for learning transfer is extremely important. Coaches should design tasks or discussions that are challenging enough where the athlete must struggle to find an answer. And this includes practices, setting up drills, or setting up stations where the task is difficult and includes failure and a chance for those individuals to create a learning experience to improve on that task. Coaches should encourage critical thinking as well as challenging others to create conflict in group discussions, and those group discussions should allow for multiple viewpoints or solutions to be formed and followed by discussion on which method is best. The instructor should look to design content for practical use. The individuals involved in the training must be able to connect what they are learning to their everyday life for the training to be effective. This should look at athletically and academic fields as well. The coach should look for ways in which they can make clear connections of relevancy in the training. After the program is done, after the training is done, usually probably done at the end of the academic year, the coach should systematically review every stage of the training to determine its effectiveness. They should look at the data they've collected through academic improvements such as GPA, athletic improvement through statistical or through team achievement, and then the assessments they've taken through periodic time frames in the training. I think it is important to also use post-program surveys that should be given to their athletes to get feedback on what is beneficial, what wasn't, and what things can be changed to further improve the training program for future athletes. The recommendations for further study include implementing the program itself. This is where you would track progress through assessments, academic data, and athletic data. You would see if the system or the program would actually work, and this would determine what is useful in the program and what wasn't. Looking back on what I would have done differently in this project first starts with earlier preparation. I understood I wanted to do something with growth mindsets earlier, or pretty early in this program, but earlier preparation to develop more of a broad foundation of resources would have been helpful. I would have also researched how coaches learn more just to give myself a better base on how coaches learn and how I can incorporate this program to be useful to coaches in a higher and more efficient way. And with that, these are my references. And we can now open up to questioning.